Hello, Americans. This is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me, not just God. Your God, so help me, it's the truth. Because God is available. And there are things that are true. Truths can be used for lies. Truths can be used by lies for others, for lies by others. And there's a quality of fact-keeping nature that is pretended to be the nature of truths where they are being and have been used, that cannot defend itself and afford the short words with convictions proper by what is constant and what is variable as its identity of relationship to itself. That that's distinct identity of a simultaneous nature. For example, that is increasingly relative to how and to why it shows us itself. Hyper and discernible, not just as why there are seven names for a verb, as the visible, invisible, but still discernible. For example, regarding the transportation secretary was just on MSNBC, and he was quoting. He said that they're not supposed to take for granted the flight record of safety. Now there are more people who had roles with the World Trade Center with a whole bunch of different natures of organized crime and methods of them that are federal evidences crimes, federal rules of evidences crime methods, whole methods. Weathersfield Police with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants, their family members, proven child defenders, leaders of the kids, and more then and now. And this is also with a whole bunch of different countries, how they're getting over on it, and they did in the past. So note how nature communicates about difference. We have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. There are exceptions. Some people have the same color eyes at the same time with the exceptions. So there are other pilots and people involved with planting evidences on Trinity College and Central Connecticut State University, as people involved had timed roles with predicate acts on my street in Weathersfield, natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders, where they've been attaching everyone to fake ties to each other too. Fake. This is a game that hurts people some way. With they're constantly being influenced by what the breaching method did. For example, when the color black is or white is brought up, and you leave out what nature communicates with us having black people's whites of eyes, and you leave out how the breaching method employed other to be communicated for that. Happy Friday, Joya, Jo, Joya. Joya was again. Shout out to Joya, the guitar people. If that's not you, are you a guitar person? Or here's this guy, Arbor Aubrey. This is one of the people who just posted. Jaya, the guy who just posted. Oh, there's two people. How you doing, people? See, the third guy who just posted in these comments has roles with Weathersfield Police and Whiting Forensics and Sandy Hook with child defenders, leaders of the kids. Now these are people also on off the state judicial branch offices. Certain type of victim predator, hyper predator, hyper victim too. This is people involved with world economic syntax and valued syntax. See, because this is an identity different syntax. These are people involved with not just with a shell game, not just with exceptions, with the difference of that. And with, in other words, names A through Z. So more World Trade Center predicate acts and our roles with the names next to the Weathersfield town offices, for example, next to churches involved with elections, next to schools, campuses further involved with elections. It's juxtaposed tactically distinct natures of organized crime, of worse than war crimes, black pupils. So, in other words, I am not a lawyer, not a police form, not a journalist. The journalists have been, the people that are supposed to get licenses so they can have legitimacy, be legitimate. They're also directed to hide lies. Because relative, for example, there are negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and influences because of how hundreds of nations are shared here and there. And they're demonstrably directed to hide things about that. And they're not supposed to leak it, but they leak it as ones that, for example, also to ourselves, where and how they're making things up about in other words, at countries A through Z, there are only three branches of government, and the exception nature tied to them. For example, like other natures of campuses, like fire campuses and medical campuses. They have also roles with mental health. They force mental health evaluations. And they've been using these mental databases to put fake conversations with people. A whole bunch of ties between the families that work with them and their security and nurses involved with military, for example, also as intelligence, not three branches of government, but some ways down, and using their identity. Yeah, black people. So pretending that people who aren't lawyers can't speak about the law better than the lawyers. What slavery is about, what Jim Crow laws is about that which forced our founders to make 13 agreements with people who would have been killed for it by the breaching method, for even having found out, have been conversations with our founders and not told on it. And so they made them do things that would have made them found out, and they would have had no way to get away with it unless they relied on our founders, which a portion of them are Native Americans too. So, but this is James Madison's plan. This is George Washington's. We were supposed to treat honestly the extortion of himself, the torture method /S upon himself and upon us, ourselves, our humanity. As the colonists, volume science as colonists abridged from its human volume science. As Native Americans too, forced off of it. Tactically denatured was the landscape. There are proofs that there were way more perennial vegetables than there are now. And that the only reason there's the asparagus exists is because they're just too hard. It was just too hard to wipe out. So they could control what everyone eats or who doesn't. So we have predicate acts with facts roles as nations A through Z, as names that they have. And we have to be their name, abridged, constitution nature. So this guy has a name. His action, this is his YouTube name. I'm not saying this. This is the guy's name to make it sound like people saying it by the people who interpret things. There are online investigators involved with child sex offenders, also with the FBI associated with the Witness Protection Program. They're also involved with corners of streets, uses, manifest, and treatments of maps and discussions of them syntactically, used to measure and main collusions, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. There is a quality of fact-achieving nature, not just as criminal insidiousness, that is forced to have formal court locations at all states and interstates. There are people who went to my grammar school who have roles with interstate commerce, criminally foreign influence, with people associated with criminally foreign influence uses of body dumping spots, falsified police reports rolls, wire crime acts and methods rolls, with Weathersfield Police and FBI and state police families through time, associated with the same house. Slash S, people involved with Afghan leaders and kids, uses of the difference of little girls and of little boys, uses of the difference of black and white. These are KKK black themed, Confederate flag themed military and medical, foreign and domestic. You're speaking with difference, pretending to perceive prejudice, racism, whether using their differences interbranch to force equality of fact achieving nature. Fake as collusion. They've been stacking fake. They all investigators. They've been used to hide things tied to uses effective of predicate acts with facts against everyone at each age of correlation nature sickly distinctly to keep how sick functionally, how sickly distinct, non-distinctly, and that being demonstrated by nature itself is left out because that's what's discernible. Black people. The second we hear about the laws with the black and white, we are shocked and awe because we have black pupils and whites of eye. And we know that there were systems other. So what we've missed is where not just how that's going to cause negative value nature progression to acts of nature, those are crazy laws against everyone. And the syntax by it simultaneously, the natures by it. The nature of debate, for example, relative to short words and to this method. Now, increasingly for the breaching method, where everyone's rolls with it because they're forced, but ignoring that part of their excuses. That breaching method needs those excuses. It measures and maintains the people that we have who are supposed to be able to counter things like criminal foreign influences. And this is at countries A through Z. I'm saying the people we have as a human volume science. It is more probable and it is more practical to theorize, let alone to convict, that yin yang and that alpha and omega had been revealed together, appreciating exception nature, appreciating a special difference as a special as exception nature, and appreciating 5 distinct identities of the complete identity of the extent of the as the connected complete extent as the connected extent of the identity of the hyper simultaneous that we could discern, the identity of relativity / hyper relativity. The slash part is simultaneously actively. We're more 3 identities of volume as value as nature / nature as value, and the other sequence nature simultaneously. This is capable of being discerned this way. Alpha and omega is about that which is constant, also constantly positive onto itself. As your body is relativity to positive and negative simultaneously. This is proof of relativity. As your body is further making more positive onto itself, more identity of relationship to itself, positive or negative, and the value of that simultaneously. As each subject associated with and as you, individually grouped and together, this is its science, hyper science. It is a distinct nature of volume science, so we could discern it. This is what we are appreciating, where and how we appreciate names hyper additional, like subject, for all the physical things. and like verb. That's why we need 7 names for the verb. And it's about appreciation of the 1/3/5 ways 5 identities of sequence nature are connected, and also distinctly 3 ways by the same identity of hypersimultaneous nature. So this is a summary of the identity of relativity theorem and the identity of hyperrelativity theorem. This is a hyperconjunction to any subject we could make, individually, grouped, or together. Any list that could be conceived. See, but we have the lists of people tied to databases, and then further where and how the sciences, at locations the sciences are manifest. Sustained collusions with the breaching method before our founders were born. The suburbs were designed for this. It measured and maintained U/S of corners of streets, of the sense and sensibilities of those who always appear to be American, with their U/S of their difference and of those of the difference of others, black pupils. We have the hyper evidential that we could use to humble. Also, the roles with these predicate acts with facts methods that people before they took oaths had and have and were enabled to have them keep, even though nature is demonstrating other themselves blaming other things, others ourselves. Note they have tactical delusions too, the formal voices for the law. It is a crime method to tell people to pretend that people are uncooperative with the police after the police already pretended they knew me since I was a kid. They pretended I had conversations with someone was a kid. I never did. The kids who did have conversations with them, they brought the subjects up and then they put fake things with it. And they hid what was actually and is actually recorded, increasingly relative. The World Trade Center has all kinds of natures of roles with all kinds of natures of organized crime. Not legitimately, with unmarked police forms and with criminal groups like criminal enterprises in like countries as they have them, syntactically described and that self-defended simultaneously. No, as natures, wanting and needing to have natures of debate, where relative their premises treatments, their sequence shifts. So the sources of the intelligence community, of the transportation community, there's people with the name Lombardo and neighbors of his, like Walters, involved with judges and prosecutors, and with people with the inter-services, intermilitary, people with the people that know my names, I don't even know their name. At the corners of the street, like along Ridge Road. They switched names of the streets with that too. Something to do with people each year at every campus I went to. People from off the campuses are influencing the adults and the kids at off-campus locations to further roles with illusions on the campuses that they will tell you about. And I would tell you about, but you have to ask right. See, I already used words like questions, like their right to question people, like the perception, criminally foreign influence. There was, in other words, not just Connecticut courts. There's a judge Napolitano who has a YouTube channel called Judging Freedom. He's probably one of the better judges. And you know what I'm saying? Sure, in other words, but he had 400 arraignments in one day. And how and why he had 400 arraignments to do in one day when they started per him on one of his YouTube channels. That means 400 people got arrested and one judge has to begin to deal with that, which means there were 400 instances and or demonstrations that are also relative to, again, where and how. Hyper evidential is where and how other things, others or selves, are being and haven't been blamed. Where our founders left us to understand and for everyone to teach that and how a breaching method had employed things like slavery, things like counters to it and collusions, uses of exceptions in exception nature, collusion slash S, where this breaching method measures and maintains nature's demonstrations of itself, blamed on other things, others, or selves. That's also why we have to appreciate hyper criminal insidiousness distinctly from criminal insidiousness, and hyper criminal foreign influences distinctly from criminal foreign influences. Names A through Z are criminally foreign influence uses of our country's names. Their constitutions are abridged. One of the things that Jim Crow laws is about how manifest were slash are demonstrations of the Constitution being abridged, being effectively, rolls with the entrenchments that enabled its abridgments. This is that breaking method that was not just against slaves, as defined by it, leaving out how it had everyone slaves that way since semi-ancient times. Now, where there is a nature of debate regarding these things, they are used to get in the way of people who make short words about how I recorded, not trying to. Also confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed. The intelligence community involved with abuses of each age of fact, human nature, at locations their time going to be. Lying about their motivations, there's timed collusions with a whole bunch of other countries, all the countries in the news. And with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, same time. These are not legitimate cares for unmarked police forms security. There are a certain type of victim to maintain. Syntactical possessions of the names of the difference, the differences of the branch of the government. For example, there was a YouTube channel named, and there were community platforms with community television associated with a man named Peruta. More than one family named Peruta. So nothing personal. I don't know them. They're trying to make it seem personal. And there's a someone from my sixth grade class with the name Tom Peruta. The fake exception I know him from, all except when he was in my sixth grade class. And never anything to do with, in other words, we were on the bus together before. We didn't even sit there when we were on buses and stuff. It has something to do with their roles with Russia and America. And sense and sensitivities, sense and sensibilities, use Jan Austen's phrase, but use them for the dictionary definition of it. Relative to where people would speak for and do speak for the law, criminally foreign influence. Also with the lawyers of the FBI. And a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, has a lawyer named Robert Chevry and his co-defendants. And he was warned by the judge in the picture. He had a picture of his portrait on the wall. I believe it was a Judge Winters or a Judge Nations. His picture was on the wall on Ninth Circuit Court in Connecticut in 2006. Former director of the FBI, former standing chairperson of the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, and his co-defendants, and their lawyer, Robert Chevry, and names on off his law offices, which is not far from the Harriet Beecher Stowe, Mark Twain houses, and that's not far from the state capitol. and spots next to them. A whole bunch of people tied to it, Jonathan Mayano and his teachers, and conversations with him involved with sequence shifts and then spreading illusions tied to it. Federal evidence is crimes, federal rules of evidence is crimes, with people involved with judges and prosecutors and their family members, also with other agencies and foreign bodies, on off locations relative. These are people that brought up the World Trade Center attack. WFSB attached me to fake conversations with them about the World Trade Center, and they're being influenced to lie about the motivations of myself and others for mentioning it. And they force people to speak as groups, also to fake group speak as people involved with the phrase group think, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, like with the word extremism, like with the word radical. English uses and reason uses difference in ways greater than, more finite than, and with active relativity to the finite grouped and simultaneous ways math uses. But then as it too, non-distinctly. So we could see functionally what to be led by, how to describe reason, how to describe properly what's practical reason, use Immanuel Kant's phrase. With the dictionary definition of those words, and why and how. So, for example, the intelligence community had roles with foreign countries on all sides of our houses and all sides of my house. For the Weathersfield police, they had roles with home break-ins through the time involved. A whole bunch of people tied to former direct. I don't know where he's from, Washington, or where he lives. Probably all over. But he, in his defendant capacities, this is the former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. He has roles, for example, with the uses of the natures of people on all sides, with like the Israeli and Palestinian killing each other, humanity. His volume science abridged. The Russian Ukraine, humanity science volume abridged. We had obligations to have how names A through Z were forced to entertain systems. So had you guys been honest about how the relativity of the uses of the criminally foreign influence databases and names uses that came from before modern religions, you would have been able to appreciate what is recorded that you can't appreciate. That's simple to understand too. Right in the beginning of the Old Testament and of the Quran, for example, per science. In fact, it says in the beginning of the Old Testament, the names of the people, the sciences, will come together. And this is the only part that you have to understand. That the only part that matters, and the part that comes before that. But you guys want to use the knowledge, your knowledges of subjects as employed, uses of them, like black and white. You guys want to be experts on black and white and the difference. You left out the breaching method, experts, names, A through Z. Otherwise, you were sensed, even if you were a majority of people. And see what so. The police forms cannot be trusted, and they cannot afford to have discerned what they recorded themselves, demonstrating, confessing, recording, confirming. So the intelligence community with Sandy Hook is increasingly demonstrating they want to be talked about, with the courts that want to be talked about, and with the campuses and fire departments that want to be talked about. For example, their roles with Russians and their roles with medical locations like Harvard Hospital, a whole bunch of names involved with predicate acts in my street from other locations like this Leahy family that pretended conversations with me. Now, WFSB also pretended conversations with me, attached me to fake locations with themselves and with others. And when I caught them with a forcing child offender leaders of the kids, these are also leaders of mentally retarded people and where they live, roles with that, roles with leasing agents, intercities, with the military, intelligence community, the difference between that and the interbranch families. And in other words, intelligence community has military too, KKK theme, Confederate flag theme. They're on campuses making theories where they speak about color and where they keep their mouth shut are both hyper evidential. Certain type of victim slash hyper victim, shock and awe. No. And valuing. So with everyone speaking for their difference as systems tactical ulterior from the one that shows us how reason works and how to describe reason and names properly, motivations properly, emotions. Emotions serve a function to discern if the person describing them or demonstrating what they believe others, like the face is disgusting of Buttigieg. And then he's going to pretend it's because he then brings up his MSNBC brings up his husband. In other words, plus there's sexual harassment that the bisexual intelligence community has, where they've been roles with the falsified police reports, identity theft, frauds, wire crime acts and methods. Weathersfield police switch names, forge names. They have roles with people with their kids, intercities. They're switching and forging names on different falsified police reports, criminally foreign influence uses of crime scenes, roles, and differentially the ones at the courts. See, the courts and the cops and the police forms, the difference of the other intelligence, even the family members of senators. There's a Mike DeMay, and there's a Anthony Yagman, who are involved planting evidences on all sides of with people on all sides of the high school and of other schools, with planting evidences with foreign and domestic medical families, fake ties to kids with doctors, sick also with the ones they do speak with, tactically delusions raw / hyper tactically. So they have negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures because they have roles of predicate acts with facts against each age of fact achieving nature simultaneously, increasingly from uses of them just pretending they could speak for the law, A through Z. They have lawyers. There's a Trantolo and Trantolo planting fake evidences and databases roles with WFSB and with people that work for them and with their roles with a whole bunch of people with service plate ads and regular company ads with state, local media, and international and national media because they're planting fake motivations. So they're preventing mandated law, and they have the experts. They're going to keep hiring. They want to keep hiring security, online security. Oh, that's if that's hateful speech, you mark it. They have confession. That's how they make confessions with the people that they put with fake conversations with others. They're preventing people from calmly getting on paper properly the right outcome /S because the people have been using mandated law the way the breaching method showed them to at countries A through Z. And because at locations, areas, and states, everywhere the human body is, you guys have had sense and sensibilities as criminal insidiousness nature relative to all natures of things, boxings. So your quality and nature of debate cannot be defended, and you are for to act properly when people act on when mentioned acts on kids. These are people are putting fake conversations and making the length of our communications longer because they keep putting fake more confessions and bringing in more names. The intelligence community has name stacking, where the difference of them interbranch individually grouped together predicate acts methods. But it's also because they have roles with intelligence tied to them with them. And it's also how they use their kids and the adults at the same time with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and the extended families of the other countries, then switching the names too. They have workers of a mobile gas station on the corner of Town Line Drive and Southstein Highway. And there's the place, I forgot the name of it. But there were people that worked with the intelligence community at the other buildings there. And they are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed with the differences of which place is involved with it, criminally foreign influence. And the FBI has roles through the sales of businesses and through business transactions to measure and maintain people's sense and sensibilities, collusions against themselves, where they are being and have been shown, where they are already used remotely relative to their roles with predicate acts with facts. I do not know the Tom Perone and Daniel Perone and the exceptions they were influenced to make fake exceptions. I never had a response to Danielle Perone. She's one of the ones with a Mark Violet. Whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital involved with psychiatry, with child offenders, sexual and medical, and foreign and criminal foreign influence. Criminal enterprises, judges and prosecutors, people involved with religious locations like St. Anthony's Church in Hartford and the spot next to it. And it's nothing personal against the place. Only where they right when I was telling them I was qualifying. Well, I'm going to get the name, and then they kicked me off Facebook. Facebook has people that work for Facebook completely criminally foreign influence, some ways acted on it, and World Trade Center predicate acts relativity to it. There are proofs that they have ties to names in the World Trade Center because there are a whole bunch of natures of organized crime and of relative delusions per the natures of investigators in their campuses, how involved. Quinnipiac University has roles with various natures of organized crime, federal rules crimes, federal evidences crimes, federal methods of them, natures of identity theft, fraud, slander roles. You see them reporting on television that we should worry about the identity theft. They should fear God for what they think. They when they read statutes and precedents, they're leaving out exceptions. They're leaving out exception nature, let alone hyper exception nature. There are one volume what is as the subject and as the verb, for example. And where they appear not to be. They're hyper additional nature. And where they both ways they are. And hyper additional nature can be discerned here. Vaccines. So you have to follow mandated law. The police have a whole bunch of falsified police reports. There's police families with the name Mendez and a Mike Domain and an Adam Domain. And they have parents. I never met the Adam Domain. They have roles with people that live next to the campuses and fields where foreign bodies get involved with people's conversations, and then they use measured and maintained. Their involvements with everyone's motivations, because it's also everyone's because they're attaching other people to faked and changed communications. So a whole bunch of countries have words that have phrases like criminal justice, where they were shown by the breaching method they can't have afforded discern. In other words, Judge Napolitano has a guy. His last video I just saw by him He has a guy who's trying to move with a world court to move against Joe Biden for Joe Biden, to indict Joe Biden. Now he's not for Trump. He's not for Bush. This is a shell game. All we have to do is speak about with the predicate acts with facts and the overt delusions of the people that are speaking at the other end of the weapons on all sides. And everything shuts down and every means come out of nowhere. You know how much money they owe at Hartford Hospital? They have more streets in Hartford. They only have like 300 streets in the hospital. In Hartford. The Institute of Living, founded on the campus of Hartford Hospital in 1822, with slavery still entrenched north and south, from before our founders were born, still fact-cheating nature enslaved, tortured and extorted, but we were supposed to start with the extortion, the one in the middle. A Scar, who disbelieves. Let's show how they can't afford this discerned. See, they pretended they need to have impressions of integrity where they don't. They're supposed to give up where they don't have integrity. They were trying to make the debates about that. They want to have debates about morality and values regarding what people saw on January 6th dishonestly as collusion screening the foreign bodies, inseparable from every state, let alone further, Washington. Now, they can't even get right why and how the North and South fought. They were forced to be a side. Not one of them was a side in possession of themselves. Not America's not in possession of its name. Our founders communicated for us to address how all economic values and employments of logic, uses of words like voting, to measure as tools to measure and maintain sense collusions with the Constitution abridged. You can't defend convictions made for it, but in the name of, they have to be able to speak. So they ask the president, what can they say? But then they go and they use it for what they don't. They make things up. See, WFSB has roles with Marcus positions in Wethersfield from their location in Rocky Hill, involved with their roles with New Britain campuses and Rocky Hill campuses and Wethersfield campuses, then and further, with juxtaposed natures of child abuses. There are males and females involved with the name Riley, further on off Central Connecticut State University, involved with child offenders, including sexual, and with ones tied to my area. So this is increasingly relative. Their confessions demonstrate they're playing games where they're pretending they're making victims self-value roles with that, as long as they blame other things other than themselves or keep their mouth shut. Otherwise, that body is sensed, even if it's a majority black pupils. Not many people see and discern, but were shocked and awe. Otherwise, they were sensed, and they were lied about. What people lied about what they thought when they were responding to where back in the day, and still they'll put like a Confederate flag or KKK themed person and black themed people to fight with each other. They're used to measure and maintain roles with employments of difference and of exceptions, and or of exceptions, and exception nature, as criminal and ceaseless natures. Now, this is functional to where and how interbranch spoke and speak about difference because they were child abused. They're being child abused. The ones who will be the only three branches of government, easier than, cake. This came from some ancient time. Easier than making cake to keep them criminally foreign influenced tactically delusions raw. The suits and ties, counters to them, and exceptions. Black pupils. So they're charging. I was the first of three times. Harvard Hospital has a whole bunch of people who are directly, indirectly involved with a whole bunch of natures of federal crimes, federal evidences crimes, federal rules of evidences crimes, with news locations, with names next to their businesses, next to the campuses, including their campus, Harvard Hospital. So we have hospitals being used for to steal money that's got nothing to do with healthcare. A whole bunch of people with fake healthcare under the guises of healthcare. And since founding, because their roles were the torture, extortion, slavery method. Now they used the attack on the World Trade Center attack as collusions per uses of location slash S. This is also relative to how they can be motivated to stay so sick fake, to pretend that we're supposed to debate with people who are experts on each of the sciences with their tactically delusions raw. And their nature is being used to prevent mandated law, as collusions with the people speaking for mandated law, as collusions with the torture, extortion method, slavery method, under the guise of corrections. No, I saw promote vaccines on off the Connecticut corrections offices. They have roles with all kinds of natures of organized crime acts and natures and uses of the crime method of pretending to legitimately be trying to hide police forms or to defend their identity when they're not. They have roles with Los Solitos for themselves as names on Facebook, planting evidences. All people with a punch, people tied to a police chief Cintron and 1 years ago. Bob with Hartford Hospital. A bunch of people tied to the name Cololo and Violet and involved with military on and Joe Aiello with military on off Central Connecticut State University, on off fire departments, on off Trinity College, foreign roles on off Hartford Hospital, spots next to them, next to Buckley High School. These are people involved with mayors from Weathersfield, involved with medical offenders of kids, foreign and domestic, tactically delusions raw, identity theft, fraud, slander. Well, I never had a class with Joe Aiello in my life. He planted evidences, try to make a fake. They make fake exceptions sometimes too with these people. Like after my class graduated, in the cafeteria of and they bring their sister into it, and the timing because they're playing the sense and sensibility with that foreign body. These are increasingly people in the past who had roles with predicate acts in Hartford, who have roles with them in Weathersfield, increasingly with the principal child offender. More people tied to mayors and tied to wedding forensics has people have met with confessions tied to mayors. Mayor Gold and his family members, further with child offenders. Now there's the name Bennett too. I don't know where they live, if they still live there. These are people involved with international relations, economic treatments, and security treatments that are breached. Again, relative to their tactical delusions too. All kinds of natures of organized crime with the reason experts. That so long they've been shown with the interbranch tied to them and their family members needs and means to hide that by putting fake conversations in databases as collusions with crime scenes. So forgiveness is so they don't keep changing what we say. Focus on Connecticut interbranch, switch names and forge names as collusions at crime scenes and with passion crimes with their Facebook pages. And as people involved with use as collusions with the uses of names on off parks who have been planting evidences intercities. So a whole bunch of people with West Hartford when I was a kid. I don't know them. Tied to one's named Demaro and Cololo. They have roles with the intelligence community, criminally foreign influenced. And there are more people with a principal child abuser they're involved with. A Bob Chase, said that there's a he confessed Phil Cololo is involved with him with federal evidences crimes, federal rules of evidences crimes, and with judges and prosecutors, and with that whiting forensics with the same houses when I was a kid. They were involved with the witness protection program, also involved with names at the corners of streets on like Griswold Street and Fairlane Drive. Joshua Stryker is involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me, lying about himself and others since he was a kid, and planting evidences with sequence shifts. Then he non-verbally confirms like a day later, and you don't even know the person, and that's the fake exception because they do little tricks like this. These are people involved with the co-defendants, the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, leading up to the World Trade Center attack in the court right next to it. On off the World Trade Center and the spots next to it. These are people criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. They have roles with victims against themselves with as collusions, with everyone speaking through others. Their sense and sensibilities. We're going to debate their motivations for why they want stuff. Get them on paper with the people with the capital tied to the victims of Sandy Hook, because these are people also involved with the gun dealerships places and other natures of mixed roles with mixed natures of organized crimes with the kids, and they're pretending to bring up the instances legitimately. In other words, so get them on paper. They have, in other words, the same ones involved with the automatic weapons. These are people involved also with doctors, with the United doctors reportedly of Adam Lanza, who are involved with the United medical families that have been planting evidences on and off the houses of kids. They've been attaching to fake conversations with themselves and others tied to their kids themselves. They've been spying on the kids in schools, and then having other kids tell on people and to make it look like they had interactions before that, tied to that, and building on little fake things. And where how the hyper we have, we're going to use the hyper evidential. Me and YouTubers who are gonna get behind, you know, overcoming the predicate acts against ourselves. The World Trade Center, WFSB has roles. WFSB is a Connecticut news location. I don't have a phone, so I can't call them anymore. Plus, the FBI and the Wethersfield Police, they have roles with the Rocky Hill Police there, and Newington Police families, and military families. And the difference of that with the roles with them forging and switching names, and timed collusions with the other countries overt criminal enterprises involved, and the body dumping spots of Billy Grasso, also involved with names on off the state judicial branch offices. How are you doing? I do see it. This is about more World Trade Center predicate acts are recorded. WFSB recorded additional ones after the World Trade Center attack as a Connecticut news location with intelligence community that lived next to that next associated with locations next to them through time, and next to WTNH, and next to Fox Connecticut News, which is also next to the state capitol, and families that were abused on off a church right there also had the roles of the intelligence community involved with that, with the foreign ones too, and their uses of their lies while they were growing up about themselves and others. Then they had to hide that and uses of that roles when they were adults by pretending to know me, by attaching me and my family to fake communications with ourselves and with others, fake ties to others, fake natures of ties to others, fake motivations for it, timed increasingly collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones. They're not legitimately with the acting coaches, the acting professors at Central Connecticut State University. They are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed with WTNH, involved with their intelligence community and FBI next to them. And I know people on and off Yale have roles with, and all the campuses. Nothing, these are great campuses. But I don't know if UConn too. There's a Violet family has roles, all kinds of medical corruption, foreign and domestic, involved with identity thefts and frauds, and putting things increasingly each year into databases fake, timing where the kids are going to walk to hide uses of that. This is so increasingly names associated with businesses and overt criminal enterprises next to Hartford Hospital are also ones that have been next to the campuses, collusions with narratives, falsified police reports, uses of the Facebook pages of the campuses to hide and force child offenders, leaders of kids. It is also relative to where and to how they speak about difference, like with the difference, well, how they react to the real cause of negative value nature, progressions, acts, and natures with the schools at each city, sickly distinctly, but to keep how sickly non-distinctly from being discerned. Not science spoke for Hartford or for spoke for one suburb, let alone for Hartford in New York City, which so Wethersfield, Connecticut was designed before our founders were born. And the witch trials place is also about that slavery method, regardless of who made it up and what. It was about that slavery method at databases locations, at the locations that forced that to be self-valued, where they didn't want that either, except for exceptions made. This had been sustained against Native Americans and indigenous populations who did and do damage control. But while they're trying to react properly, no one's reacting properly because we have entertained what you can't entertain, and then afford to pretend and then pretend to be able to speak for practical reason or positive or negative properly. There's a difference between positive that's criminal and insidious nature of positive or use of it. And there's the value of what came first. That's increasingly important. Black things, like just things. So get them on paper, one name and sequence. When you go before the courts, they prevent writing proper while they've been stacking things for personal reasons, needed to be pretended because they have foreign bodies involved with them. They've been roles with the fake narratives and illusions in databases before they took oaths. One of the things that we hear tied to the people who got hurt and reportedly killed at the World Trade at the Washington D.C. And they blaming on Trump. They're being used to measure and maintain. Even if there was exceptions, they're being used to measure and maintain the involvement of foreign bodies involved. They put me in fake and changed communications regarding my roles with the protest when I was a kid. As people involved increasingly with conversations about with leaders of kids, leaders of schools, and with their conversations with their kids and use as identity fraud slanders. They're pretending to know people, making fake exceptions, lying about that and what they thought about it. There are increasingly people making loaded statements and then having the lies about the answer because there are increasingly collusions and uses of fake sites and difference. There's no difference with Republicans and Democrats where there are collusions with that breaching method too, torturing their leaders, like the Republican or Democratic leaders. The individual finite. Only an individual can defend the order of the finite. So they get away with it because they make, oh, well, look, we already, in this context, we had to fight and speak about voting as a value with the military and all that. That's the only thing they're capable of speaking about because you all were fake with other people's names. It's discernible when I ask you to follow mandated law. Fix the fake conversations with me about the World Trade Center. This is extortion. You guys are going to hurt yourselves. And you're going to stop hurting others too. And you're going to get the Roger Suzanne away from the kids, and to get the courts, judges on paper with them tied to him, and all along Route 3. Let's go. Get on paper now, and get them on paper one name in sequence. The Wethersfield police switching and forging names, falsifying police reports with the names at the courts. Let's go. I'll show you how to move. I'll show you get things done. Get out of the sky too, and get these people out of the transportation with the names Lombardo and Perone. Let's go.